you. Our managers have done a great job, and they're continuing to do a great job at building their teams, especially as we head toward the busy summer season. But there's a deep care about what we do, and we hope that we are doing it well. And again, if there's any way that we can do it better, also use that chat function as a way to share those comments. But with me tonight is Randy Darby. He is our Spa Guard, all things knowing, our Spa Guard representative. And I'm going to give the majority of the night to him. Randy, thanks for being with us and for doing this, and I'll let you at it.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's Tony and I were just talking. It's been a couple of years since we've done one of these seminars, and we like to do this. There's a lot of new hot tub owners out there and people that have been doing it a while that just need some basic information. And this is going to be pretty basic. So any of you that have been doing this a while that have more technical questions, just like Tony said, just hit the chat button and ask any questions. We'll definitely address them. And we really want to make spa care easy. We want to make sure people love their hot tub and want to use it every night or as often as they want. And the water should be crystal clear. It should feel good. It shouldn't smell, those kind of things. So with that, let's get started. And let me cue up my presentation here. And this is what I'm going to cover tonight. And this is going to be pretty short and sweet. Maybe 45 minutes, an hour maximum, depending on questions. But I'm going to cover kind of the basics, what we call the 6 keys to spa care, a little bit on troubleshooting. Hopefully, if you follow everything that we're going to talk about tonight, you won't have any needs for troubleshooting. But I'll talk a little bit about what to look out for and how to solve it. Tony's going to talk a little bit about cover care and a couple of accessory things. So that's kind of the agenda tonight. First and foremost, what spa hot tub owners expect. They want to have water that is safe, sanitized, safe for them and their families to get in. If you think about it, you're kind of your own health department. That's why you test the water, or I'll talk a little bit about bringing water samples into one of the pool and spa house stores, but you want to have safe, sanitized water. It should be crystal clear, not kind of clear. It should be crystal clear where you can put a quarter on the bottom of the hot tub and tell if it's heads or tails. It should be that clear. The water should feel good on your skin and eyes, that type of thing, and you should have a great experience with your spa. And it doesn't matter what type of spa that you have, whether it's the traditional, portable spa like you see over on the top left there. That's kind of the traditional that, really in the last 15, 20 years, that's kind of the typical spa that we see. The one on the top right, that's a little fancier in-ground spa. The last few years, the bottom left, these have become very popular as the inflatable hot tubs. And then you've got the old wooden hot tubs. That's kind of where everything got started. The point here is we treat the water exactly the same. Doesn't matter what type of hot tub you have. In fact, you treat it the same. If you had a commercial hot tub at a hotel motel, you treat it exactly the same that we're going to talk about tonight. These are what we call the 6 keys to spa care. And I'm going to go through each one of these fairly quickly, but we'll cover all of them because they are important that we've got good circulation, filtration. There's a few cleaning chores that we need to do. Then the basic chemistry. I'll touch a little bit on testing as far as what you need to do at home, and then the testing that Tony and his staff at one of the stores can help with. And then we'll talk about how often to drain and refill your hot tub as well. So the first one is probably the easiest one, circulation. And if your hot tub is less than 10, 12 years old, pretty much the newer modern hot tubs circulate extremely well. Some of them have 24-hour circulation. Some of them may be set up on like a 4-hour circulation window every day. That's typically plenty. If you've got maybe a little bit older hot tub that maybe is on a time clock, the key here is we want to make sure that the pump is running at least a couple hours a day to ensure we've got good filtration. We're keeping the water hot. We're keeping the chemicals distributed, those kind of things. Pretty much this takes care of itself. Sometimes if somebody's coming in and struggling with water quality issues, we might ask them, how many hours a day are you running? Is your pump running? And a lot of spas, if they're not running 24/7, they do have settings where you can kind of, whoops, my slide changed there. You can kick up the circulation a little bit. One of the things to note on this slide right here, you can see the waterfall where the water kind of coming out, kind of flowing over the top there. If you do have a waterfall in your hot tub, make sure you do periodically turn that on. What happens is if you don't use that very often, that water stays kind of stagnant inside the waterfall, and that's a place where sometimes we'll get a little bit of water mold growing in there. Like kind of looks like little pieces of dead skin or little pieces of toilet paper floating around. We definitely want to avoid that. So make sure you're turning the waterfall on periodically. And if you've got a spa that has diverter valves where you can kind of turn one section of the jets on and the other sections off, make sure you turn those, all of them on periodically to get the water out of the back of those jets to make sure that we don't have anything that could potentially grow back there. The next slide here is talking about aeration, and what we're talking about here is most spas, when the jets are on, you have kind of a mixture of both water and air. That gives kind of the boiling look. That gives also the hydrotherapy. The little dial that you see down here, that's an air control. A lot of spas have an air control. Whenever you're adding any of the chemicals to the water, you want those air controls off. So we're kind of shutting down how much air is being injected. The reason we do that is when the air controls are wide open and we're pumping a lot of air into the water, that tends to make the pH rise. And we definitely want to avoid that, especially if you're trying to lower the pH and you're putting pH decreaser in, but you've got the jets on full blast with the air wide open. It kind of counteracts that pH adjustment. So in general, anytime you're adding any chemicals, make sure the air controls are off. All right, so that was key one. The next one, this is a pretty important one, is making sure that your filters are clean and operating properly. The filters, whether you've got a paper cartridge like you see here, some of the spas have a little bit kind of a almost like a plastic filter media. They're called Tri-X. Sometimes you'll see those as well. Pretty simple technology. The water goes through the cartridges, picks up the dirt and debris, puts clean water back into the hot tub. These typically need to be pulled out once a month and rinsed off. I'll talk about chemically cleaning in my next slide, but typically once a month, pull the cartridges out, rinse them off, get the big particulate off, put them back in. And typically every quarter, we chemically clean them. What'll happen is if the filters get dirty and all clogged up, what'll happen is there's not enough water flow and it'll actually shut the heater off. It's basically a safety device. If we're not getting enough water flow, the heater shuts down so it doesn't overheat. So make sure the filters are cleaned. Typically, these filters will last, anywhere from 2 to 3 years, depending on how well you take care of them. And there are a lot of different cartridges. So you can see in my top right-hand slide there. So if you haven't been into the store and you need a replacement cartridge, make sure you bring in the model of the spa that you have or bring in the old filter so Tony and his team can make sure you get the right filter, because there's literally hundreds of them, and we want to make sure if you need to replace those, you get the right one. So as far as chemically cleaning the filters, we do recommend doing this, once a quarter, every 3 to 4 months, pull the cartridges out. You can either spray the filter cleaner solution that you see down here on full strength, let it sit for about a half an hour, and then rinse it off real thoroughly. This little device that you see down here in the left-hand side where my pointer's at, that's called a filter floss. That hooks to your garden hose and sprays into the pleats and gets deep into the pleats. That's a good device to use to rinse the filters out. One of the things that's real important is to get all the filter cleaner rinsed out of there. If you don't get it all rinsed out, this will tend to lead to some foaming. If you put the filters back in, it'll tend to, if the filter cleaner is not thoroughly rinsed out, you'll get a little bit of sudsing. In fact, the best of all worlds would be to have 2 sets of filters, one that's in use, one that's been cleaned, rinsed, and dried, and you rotate those, and you'll typically, get double the life. Might get, 4 to 5 years out of those two filters if you're rotating them, but keeping them clean, it doesn't matter if the filter has a little bit of a stain on it. It's just, sometimes we'll have some trace metals in the water. That's not going to affect how well the filter works. The way you're going to know if it's time to replace the filter is maybe you're losing loss of water flow. You've chemically cleaned the filter a few times, but you're not getting the same type of pressure coming out of the jets. Probably time to replace the filter. So filter maintenance is real important. Chemically clean them every quarter, rinse them once a month to keep those clean. Any questions so far, Tony?
There's one question. How do I take the filter out without draining my hot tub?
Well, let's go back to that first slide. There's a lot of different types of setups. This filter that you see here in that filter compartment there, that's not going to, when you pull that out, the spa is not going to drain. And if you've got maybe a filter that's in like a housing, same thing. You'd obviously turn the pump off. You need to make sure the pump is off if you've got a filter housing to make sure the jets aren't running any longer, but it's definitely not going to drain the spa when you pull the filter out. All right, so that was filter cleaning. There are a couple of chemicals that some people will use sometimes to help the filters work a little bit better, like water clarifier. The way water clarifiers work is they take really fine particles that are maybe so fine that they're passing through the filter, clump them into a larger particle, makes it easier to the filter to pull it out. This natural spa enzyme, if you're getting a lot of like ring around the spa, this can help with the water line accumulation, prevent that from happening. So these couple of things can help the filters work a little bit better. So a couple of options there. So that was filter cleaning. The next key is keeping the spa clean. And this is, pretty much common sense, but there's a few tools that you can use to help keep the water clear. The little skimmer net, if you've got anything floating on the surface, these little skimmer nets can help with that. If you've got debris on the bottom of the hot tub, there's some vacuums that you can use, that type of thing. There's some spa mitts to keep the water line clean. There's also a product called Off the Wall that you can put on a scrub brush to keep the water line clean. The idea here is obviously the cleaner you keep the hot tub, the better it looks. It's also the cleaner you keep the hot tub, the less chemicals you'll use because the cleaner the water is. So this will help reduce chemical consumption as well. So step 3, keep the spa as clean as possible, especially the water line. If you're getting kind of that ring around the hot tub, that's a good place for bacteria to harbor. So either the spa mitts or off the wall on a scrub brush to keep that water line clean would be important. All right, so those were the first 3 keys. The next thing is really the water chemistry. And we want to maintain good water chemistry for really a number of reasons to make sure that we're not causing any damage to the spa or the equipment, make sure the water's crystal clear. The bullet point down there, soaker discomfort, that's talking about a couple of things. If there's any bacteria in the water where we might get a skin rash, if the pH is out of balance, we might also get a skin rash or eye irritation. We kind of divide the water chemistry into 2 portions. The water balance, which everybody needs to maintain water balance, and then I'll get into the different systems. If you're on chlorine or use bromine or you have a salt water system or you're using a low chlorine mineral system, that everybody needs to maintain water balance and then have a spa care system. And that's how we kind of divide up the two areas. So I'm going to start with water balance first. So it doesn't matter what sanitizer you're using. Everybody needs to maintain good water balance. I'll touch a little bit. There's a little bit easier way to add products these days where you can use a rapid dissolve tablet instead of having to measure products out. I'll touch on those as we go through. But when we look at water balance, there's 3 main components: pH, total alkalinity, and calcium hardness. If you bring a water sample into the store, they'll test for total dissolved solids. This is a test that they'll run in the store that basically tells us how old the water is and maybe gives us an indication it might be time to drain and refill. The most important one is right up here, the pH of the water. These other two, total alkalinity and calcium hardness, typically we only need to really pay attention to those when we drain and refill. This is the one that we need to look at least once a week, is what the pH is. And if it's too low, we add pH increaser. If it's too high, we add pH decreaser. It's pretty much that simple. I'll touch on these other two in a couple of minutes, but the pH is by far the most important one. This is one of those tests that you're going to be running once a week, maybe a little bit more often if you're a new spa owner. This is one of those tests. If the pH isn't in the proper range, we really don't want to get in the hot tub until we get this corrected. This is one of those factors, like when the health department goes out to a hotel motel and checks their hot tub. This would be one of the factors the health department's going to look at. If the pH isn't in the proper range, they're going to tell the maintenance person that they need to get that corrected before they let people in the hot tub. Same for you folks. You want to make sure the pH is in balance, and you're going to use your test strips, or some of you might have a test kit. The proper range is 7.2 to 7.6. And this is strictly a scale that basically tells us how either acidic the water is or how basic it is. This is the range that we're shooting for. So as you can kind of see on the test strips, it's kind of a reddish color on the test strip. If it's kind of a yellow color, it's too low. If it's a kind of a deeper red, it's too high. And that basically, you dip that strip in. If it's got kind of an orange color, that means you're going to add pH increaser. If it's a dark red color, you're going to add pH decreaser. And that's going to be, you're going to test it at least once a week and make that adjustment. Whichever one of these products that you're going to put in, you add it directly into the hot tub. Some of the spa manufacturers recommend adding it to the filter compartment. So check your owner's manual, but that's how easy it is to adjust the pH. So you add the products, you can wait 15 minutes, and then you can get in the hot tub. It's that easy to make a pH adjustment. And you can see on my slide here, these are all the things that affect the pH. So people always ask us, I got my pH balanced yesterday, but in a couple of days or even tomorrow, it's out of balance again. That's just kind of the nature of a hot tub. The pH does fluctuate a lot. And so it's pretty common. If any of you are use a salt water system, that's very common. The pH is always going to be high. So you're pretty much never going to use pH increaser. You're going to always be using pH decreaser to keep the pH down. And in general, that's kind of the tendency in hot tubs, is for the pH to run a little bit high. The next water balancing, in fact, the next two water balancing factors, these are pretty much critical, that when we first drain and refill the hot tub, that we get these two in balance. The first one being total alkalinity. This is also on your test strips. And what this is certain minerals that are in the water. And pretty much in Western Washington, Western Oregon, we have very soft water. And so our total alkalinity coming out of the tap is extremely low. So typically when you drain and refill a hot tub, we have to add some total alkalinity increaser to the water. And what this does, this makes the pH much more stable. This is like the shock absorber or buffer for pH. So once this is in balance, when you drain and refill, the pH tends to stay a lot more stable. So that's the level that we want, typically 125 to 150. Sometimes if any of you are on a salt water system, we run that a little bit lower. But if you bring a water sample into the pool and spa house, they'll help guide you on getting this in balance. And then really the last one is it's kind of funny. We actually want to have somewhat hard water in most spa systems. So we test the calcium hardness. We want to have between 100 and 200 parts per million of calcium in the water. And again, typically in Western Oregon, Western Washington, the calcium hardness is pretty low. So in most cases, when you drain and refill a hot tub, we have to add some calcium to the water, and that's the calcium hardness increaser. And again, typically this is kind of a one-time deal. When you drain and refill, add the calcium hardness increaser. The other thing that's kind of important here is the stain and scale product. These are also recommended to be added weekly. One of the things that we do tend to get more of in a hot tub is a little bit of a scale buildup. And what scale is, now this is kind of hidden, this scale that you see down here on this heating element, that white material, that's scale. This is scale that's built up on a cartridge filter. Sometimes you'll even see it inside the hot tub. Now this is this discoloration here. This is metals in the water. The stain and scale that we recommend adding weekly, that will prevent both the discolored water and the scale buildup. So this is pretty important to add this on a weekly basis and at startup. Any questions on water balance? Anything in the chat there, Tony?
Real quick, while I look for the question again, Randy, can you make sure that no one's waiting in the weight room? I know there's a couple people that were trying to connect. I got a note. So
let me see.
If they're there, we'll let them in. But while you're doing that, going back several slides to the mention of off the wall, customer who has a cedar hot tub, is off the wall okay to use in that kind of on that kind of surface?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I would want to check the owner's manual. The off the wall is a pretty acidic cleaner. I would want to make sure that that's not going to cause it's made for acrylic fiberglass spas. I would want to double check the owner's manual. That's a really good question, but I would want to double check that to make sure it's not going to cause any harm to the wood. Anything else, Tony?
Nope, that's it so far.
Okay, I didn't see anybody waiting in the chat, but I'll keep an eye on that.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet. Okay, so that was water balance. So everybody needs to maintain proper water balance, check it once a week, make sure the pH is in the proper range and adjust as necessary. The next area is whatever spa care system you're on, there's typically it's kind of a two-step system. We need to keep some type of sanitizer in the water to kill bacteria and keep the water safe. And the second thing is we need to perform what we call shock periodically or oxidize the water to remove contaminants from the water. This is the step that keeps the water crystal clear. So we kind of have two things going on. We're keeping a continuous level of sanitizer in the water to keep the water free of bacteria, and then periodically shocking the spa with the product. And this will vary on what system you're on. Some systems, like the low mineral systems that I'll talk about in a minute, they want people to shock after every use. Traditional chlorine and bromine spas, we typically shock once a week. This is the step that keeps the water crystal clear. So there's a number of different types of sanitizer. And again, the whole purpose here is to keep the water free of bacteria so we don't get little skin rashes or respiratory infections, that type of thing. So the importance here is maintaining the proper level of sanitizer. So if you're using chlorine, traditional chlorine, like a granular chlorine, or we now have a fast dissolving chlorine tablet, the proper level is 3 to 5 parts per million. So you'll see that listed on your test strips. That's where the water is safe to get in. And if you're going to have a bunch of people over, and you're going to be in and out of the hot tub, I'd rather keep that level up closer to the 5 part per million, so you can add a little bit of extra granular chlorine to bump that level up. In fact, just to give an example, like the health department, they allow up to 10 parts per million in commercial spas. I don't recommend going that high in a backyard residential hot tub. This is really the sweet spot, 3 to 5 parts per million. You'll see on the back of the bottles, it'll tell you exactly how much to add based on the gallonage of your hot tub. So if you're unsure of the gallons that you have in your hot tub, maybe check your owner's manual or check the manufacturer's website, because knowing the proper gallonage will help determine how much product that you're going to put in. If you've got a salt water system, that actually generates chlorine. And so again, pretty much want the same chlorine level to keep the water safe. If you use bromine, pretty similar levels, 2 to 6 parts per million of bromine, whether you use the bromine granules or the bromine tablets. If you're using one of the low chlorine systems, Nature 2, At Ease, the Frog mineral sticks, any of these down here, check the owner's manual on those. Typically, they want about a 0.5 part per million of chlorine with those. But again, your test strips are going to tell you where you're at. This is basically one of those test that when you perform this test, if you're not in the proper level, don't let anybody in the hot tub. Add your sanitizer, wait 15 minutes, then you can get in the hot tub. So this is one of those tests that's basically tells you whether it's safe to get in the hot tub or not. All right. And again, if anybody's got a lot of times we'll get questions on the different types of sanitizers, just hit the chat button and Tony will relay those to me as well. All right. So that was step one of the 2 steps. Is that the next one is oxidizing the water, or most commonly referred to as shocking the water. This is actually a chemical process where we're oxidizing contaminants out of the water, things like body oils and perspiration, those kind of things. This helps keep the water crystal clear. And the frequency that we do this, typically when people ask me, I say typically we shock the spa once a week. Some of the systems might tell you to shock after every use, but these are the products that we will typically use to shock a spa. There's 2 different types of shock. Enhanced shock is kind of a multi-purpose shock. It has a little bit of chlorine in it, some pH buffers, that type of thing. The Spa Shock Oxidizer and the Rapid Dissolve tablets, this is a non-chlorine shock. So depending on what system you're on, again, Tony and his team can help guide you which one of these products to use depending on what sanitizer you're using. But this is the step to get in a routine. This is the step that keeps the water crystal clear by shocking on a regular basis. So people always ask me, when should I shock? Typically, like I said, once a week, but after heavy usage, if you've had the whole family over for the weekend, you've been in and out of the hot tub several times, Saturday and Sunday night would be a good time to shock the spa to get rid of the contaminants. And when you do this process, we, add the product directly to the water, or again, in some brands of spas, they want you to add the product to the filter compartment. We want to have at least half the cover off the spa for about a half an hour. And what that does is that allows these contaminants to actually gas off. There's a chemical process that takes place here, and the contaminants will actually gas off from the spa. So it's important to keep that cover off for at least 15 minutes to a half an hour to allow that chemical process to take place. And again, this is the step that keeps the water crystal clear.
Randy,
All
quick
right.
question. Can you go back to that slide? The quick question was, after you add the chlorine, and this actually even goes back one more slide, should you retest at about 15 minutes later and then add more if you need to? So you want to just touch on that quick.
Yeah, you sure could. I mean, especially if you're a new spa owner. I mean, typically if you add this, if you look at the back of the bottle and you know the gallonage of your hot tub and you follow the maintenance dose on the bottle, you should have a good chlorine level in there, because it's going to take that chlorine level up to about 5 parts per million. It wouldn't hurt to double check it, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to have that 3 to 5 part per million chlorine level, and the water is going to be safe to get in. Now, if the water was already cloudy and murky, yeah, then I probably would double check it. But if the water was crystal clear when you added the maintenance dose, I would be pretty assured that you've got a good chlorine level to get in that hot tub, and it's going to be safe to get in. Good question. All right. So we talked about shocking, and then I've got one more person that I'll let in here. Welcome. So we talked about shocking, and then really I've already kind of covered these, enhancing the water quality. Really on my slide right here, the most important one right here is the stain and scale on a weekly basis. These other 2, these can be added if needed to keep the water extra clear. Things like the water clarifier that will help the filter pull out more particles. The natural enzymes will break down oil accumulation that you'll typically see around the water level. This can be helpful in higher use spas. So those 2, if needed, this would really be the stain and scale would be the third piece. So you've got your sanitizer, shocking on a regular basis, and stain and scale on a weekly basis. Those 3 things, keep an eye on your pH, and really that is the chemical maintenance in a nutshell right there. And then one last product that could enhance the water, if you like it, a lavender eucalyptus fragrance, as well as a product that will keep the water extra clear and keep the water line clean. This can be used as well. All right, so now on to testing. And so there's really two pieces of the testing that you all do at home. And again, the two most critical tests are over here on the left side, the pH and the sanitizer level. And so you've got on your test strips, if you look at my pointer here, you've got the chlorine test if you use chlorine, bromine if you use bromine. So if you're using chlorine, just disregard this bromine tab. Total alkalinity and total hardness down here on the strip. These two right here, total alkalinity and total hardness, they're total alkalinity and total hardness. Frankly, I just rely on Tony and his team at the Pool and Spa House to help you keep those dialed in. If you just concentrate on these up here, the sanitizer and the pH, if you go out and you check let's say both the pH was out of whack and you had no chlorine in the water. So you know you need to adjust both of them. We always adjust the pH first, and then we add the chlorine. So the process would be, let's say your pH was high and you have no chlorine. So you go out, you add your pH decreaser, wait 15 minutes, add your chlorine, wait 15 minutes, and then get in the hot tub. It's that simple to make that adjustment and be ready to use the hot tub. Same if you're using bromine. You just follow the bromine colors here. And again, if you know you're going to getting ready to have a big party, bunch of people in and out of the hot tub, I'd want to keep the chlorine and the bromine levels higher, to the higher side of the scale. Give it a little bit extra shot of chlorine or bromine to get those levels up into that closer to the 5 part per million or 6 part per million bromine range to make sure the water is safe and sanitized. If by chance you over chlorinate or over brominate the water, it's pretty easy to get the bromine and chlorine levels down fairly quickly. Just turn the jets on full blast, open the cover to maybe open half the cover and just let it gas off. Chlorine and bromine dissipate pretty darn fast. And I guess the one caution I have here is we're talking about very small doses of chlorine and bromine. If you're using the granular chlorine or granular bromine, we're typically talking about, teaspoons, not tablespoons, not cups. It doesn't take very much chlorine or bromine to get those levels up into that 3 to 5 part per million range. Pretty minimal amount to get that level up. And if you think about it, we're talking about 3 to 5 parts of chlorine to every million parts of water. That's not very much chlorine in the water. So that's the testing that you do at home. The one thing on these test strips, these do have an expiration date, so you don't want to use them too far past the expiration date. When you're taking the strip out of the bottle, make sure your fingers aren't wet so you're getting water into the bottle that would mess with the accuracy of the other test strips. So these work extremely well. They do have test kits in the store. If you're struggling with the colors on the test strips, there are test kits available as well. And then the second piece is if you're ever kind of struggling with the water chemistry or just want to know what to do when you drain and refill your hot tub, bring a water sample into the Pool and Spa House, any of their 5 stores. They do complimentary free computerized water testing. They only need about a pint of water in a clean plastic container. Now this says quart down here, but the new technology that they're using in the store to test the water, they really only need a pint. And this is the testing really there's 2 pieces of testing equipment they use in the store. This is a spectrometer that tests the water very accurately. It does a whole host of tests, chlorine and bromine, pH, total alkalinity, metals, those kind of things. This little device down here, this is called a multimeter. This tests for the amount of what's called total dissolved solids in the water. And also if you've got a salt water spa, it tests for salt. This will tell us how old the water is. Maybe it's time to drain and refill. I'll touch more on draining and refilling in a minute, but we'll use this device to test. And then this is the printout that you'll get that'll tell you exactly what to add, how long to wait until you go to the next step. reminder when to bring another water sample in. And if you've never done this before, if you're getting ready to drain and refill, bring in a sample of your source water, the water you're filling your hot tub with, and they can basically give you a recipe of what you need to add every time you drain and refill the hot tub. And so you can keep this on hand. They store this in the computer. So if you ever need it again, they can email it to you. But this basically, like I said, gives you a recipe of what to add every time you drain and refill the hot tub very, very accurately. And speaking of draining and refilling, so people always ask us, how often do I need to drain and refill my hot tub? And it's kind of the $1,000,000 question. Is everybody's a little bit different. You know, if somebody asked me, I typically say about every 3 to 4 months, but some people could go a little bit longer. Some people might need to drain more frequently. What happens is the water just gets worn out, really depending on usage. And so, you know, kind of the second bullet point, when the water looks bad, it smells bad, it doesn't feel good any longer, it's probably time to drain and refill. If you bring a water sample into the pool and spa house and they test that you've got high total dissolved solids and the water is, you know, not looking too good any longer, they're going to recommend draining and refilling. There is a formula to calculate how often to drain and refill. In fact, this is what the health department uses for commercial hot tubs. You take the gallonage of the hot tub, you divide by 3, and you divide that by the number of people that use the hot tub per day. In this example right here, we had a 400-gallon spa used by 4 people a day. So the math on this is 400 divided by 3 is 133. 133 by 4 people a day. Now, this is a pretty extreme example. Every 33 days, you would drain and refill the hot tub. You know, that would be pretty high use. The thing to note down here, one soaker for 15 minutes is considered one person. 2 people for 30 minutes would be considered 4 people. Every 15-minute increment of one person is considered one soaker. That's how we calculate it. But frankly, it's more based on how the water looks. You know, do you have a big head of foam on the hot tub? Is it just not staying clear? Probably the cheapest chemical you can put in a hot tub is just brand new water. So when you start approaching, you know, 3 or 4 months and the water's kind of looking not perfect any longer, it's not crystal clear, it's foaming a lot, it's probably time to drain and refill. And so the one thing I would recommend, if you are getting ready to drain and refill and you haven't used a product like System Flush in the past, this is basically a product that you put in before you drain and refill to clean the plumbing lines, the inside of the hot tub, and you just put the whole bottle in, let it run for about a half an hour, and then you drain the hot tub. You do want to pull the filters out when you add this product. This is basically a product that cleans the inside plumbing lines, and so this is good to run at least once a year to clean the inside of the plumbing lines. So this is kind of, once you do drain and refill, this is kind of a quick refill guide of the process. So when you drain and refill, the first product that we always add when we first drain and refill is stain and scale control, or the stain and scale tablets, whichever you prefer. And then we're going to get the water properly balanced, either using your test strips, or probably more convenient would be to bring a water sample into the pool and spa house and have them give you a printout of how to get the total alkalinity in balance, the pH, and the calcium hardness. And once those are all in balance, then you put your sanitizer in, and whether it's chlorine or bromine, and you're ready to use the hot tub, and then get started back on your weekly maintenance. Any questions on basically the preventative maintenance? I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on troubleshooting. Anything else in the chat, Tony?
Yeah, there's 4 questions here, actually, Randy. The first one is, if we find we have to add water to the spa, how should we control the balance? And then also kind of tagging along with that, what would you consider to be a normal water loss in a spa?
Oh man, I mean, you could lose, I don't know, an inch a week. It really depends on how much you're using the hot tub and how much splash out you're getting. If you're getting a lot, if you're having to put a lot of water in because you're using the heck out of the hot tub and getting splash out, then I probably would want to pay a little bit closer attention to the total alkalinity and calcium hardness, because what's going to happen is anytime you add fresh water to the hot tub, the total alkalinity and the calcium hardness are going to be decreasing. And so you might want to check those, or bring a water sample into the store, because they can test those for you a lot more accurately. But new water is going to affect the overall water balance.
I would say too, Randy, real quick, that the condition of your cover also will affect that. We'll get into covers in a little bit here, but could be a cover issue too, perhaps.
Yeah.
The next question is, are there any of these targeted at preventing or eliminating biofilms? And this probably goes back several slides. Might be back when you were talking about oxidizing and such.
Yeah,
maybe some of the other supporting products, but biofilms.
Really, the biofilms are typically that we'll see, like water mold. That's really from lack of sanitizer in the water. And when I was talking at the beginning about circulation, and make sure that the waterfall's turned on periodically, make sure any diverter valves, especially anytime you're adding chlorine or shock, that we get that chlorine throughout the hot tub, so that we don't get any potential for biofilm buildup. I mean, that's typically where that happens. In fact, in my slide right here, this white stuff that you see floating on the surface right here, that's water mold, that's biofilm. That's typically caused by lack of sanitizer in the water. And we definitely want to avoid that. If you maybe haven't used the waterfall in a few months, and you turn the waterfall on and you see kind of a bunch of white, for lack of a better word, chunks of material coming out the waterfall, that's typically water mold or biofilm that has built up because we didn't have chlorine in there or sanitizer.
And I would also say to that too, if you have a water feature in your hot tub, Randy, if you didn't already mention this, but if you have a water feature, run that periodically, so that way you can get the sanitizer flushing through that. Those waterfall, water fountain sort of features tend to lose their luster after the quote unquote honeymoon stage is over, and then they just they stay shut off, but then bacteria and stuff is building up behind those. So make sure you're running those periodically as well.
Yep. Was there another one, or was that it, Tony?
One more question. I'm interested in knowing if it's okay to leave the spa at, say, 99 degrees when it's not in use, and then turn it up when you want to use it, or should it be stored at a higher temperature?
You know what? That part, it doesn't really matter. It's really what's convenient to you. If you can keep it at 99 and you can get the temperature up to 102, if that's where you like it, in a fast enough time period, that's perfectly fine. In fact, some people during the summer will turn the thermostat down and have it more like swimming pool temperature at 80 degrees during the summer. And so it really, in fact, it kind of brings up another good question. If you're ever going to go on vacation for a couple of weeks, really a couple things I would recommend doing. Give it a good shock of chlorine or bromine, depending on what system you're on, and turn the temperature down. I would get it down into the 90s, maybe 95, 90, 95, because the cooler the water is, the longer the chlorine lasts in the water. And so that would help. I wouldn't want to get it too low, so it takes too long to get the temperature back up when you get home and when you want to use it. But running the water at a lower water temperature, the chlorine tends to last longer. On this slide here, these are kind of the four most common problems that we run into. Now, these are some pretty extreme examples of foaming. Somebody probably vandalized this spa here and put some laundry detergent in there or something. But if you're getting more than a little bit of foam, it might be time to drain and refill. It's pretty normal to get a little bit of foaming. And it might, like I said, it might be time to drain and refill. The things that cause foam are, if you're not rinsing your bathing suits out thoroughly after you've washed them, if you don't rinse all the filter cleaner solution off your filters before you put them back in, that can cause foaming. Or just as the water gets old, the water tends to foam a little bit more. There is an anti-foam product that'll show in my next slide that does not knock the foaming down temporarily, but it's more of a Band-Aid. Cloudy water, if you're getting cloudy water, Typically, the most common causes of cloudy water are lack of chlorine, maybe the pH being a little bit too high. Those, bless you, those would cause the water to be cloudy. If your filter's dirty, maybe it's just time to change the water. The water should be crystal clear. And as I mentioned, this is water mold in the middle here. That's caused by lack of chlorine or bromine and maybe not turning the waterfall on or the diverter valves. If you've got discolored water like this picture right here, that's typically from metals, or sometimes that'll even happen with low chlorine levels in the water. The water shouldn't have a tint. It shouldn't have a green tint or maybe a brown tint like there's iron in the water. We can take care of those kind of issues as well. But these are kind of the typical issues that we'll typically see, but we can solve those pretty easily. If you do get foaming, this is a pretty common product that people keep on hand. Just don't overuse this. It does come with a flip top lid. Just put a few drops directly on the foam. It will knock it down very quickly. Excuse me. If you're getting a lot of foaming, like I said, it might be just time to drain and refill. If you add too much of this product, it tends to cause more of a scum line. So use it sparingly. Any other questions on the water chemistry? Anything else come up, Tony?
One question, what's the max you can go between draining if you use it, say, maybe once a week?
You know what? There really isn't a maximum. I mean, I've heard of people going a year. To me, it's really the water quality. I mean, if the water is still crystal clear, you're able to maintain a chlorine level and the pH level is good, keep going. That's really the barometer, is how well the water looks.
And the total dissolved solids test that Randy was referring to earlier in the slides, that's another common test that we use in the store that you won't have on your test strip. We use that really, again, as Randy referred to it, as just the age of your water. That's a good telltale sign as well, or a good barometer point that we can use as well.
All right. Anything else, Tony?
No.
Okay.
No.
You want to cover the covers?
Let's talk about covers real quick. So when we talk about hot tubs, and you see multiple pictures in the upper right hand corner there, that's a portable above ground hot tub. The lower left, that's a more of an in-ground hot tub. Doesn't matter. For most any hot tub, we can make or have made for you a hard cover for that. Different colors, there's different thickness options and such. We've done a lot of customization sort of things as well over the years. So covers are obviously important to keep the debris out, keep the heat in. Obviously, if you're keeping the heat in, you're keeping the moisture in, and thus preventing evaporation. And as you lose heat, as you lose that moisture, you're having to replenish it with fresh water. And every time you do that, of course, as the slide says here, you're reducing the balancing in the water, thus having to rebalance and use more chemicals. So all that said, a good working cover is important. If there's any heaviness to the cover, that's an indication that it's taking on moisture, that the underlayment, the under materials inside the tub have broken down, and now it's to the point where it's taking on that moisture. When Randy already mentioned it, when you are oxidizing or shocking your hot tub or adding chlorine or bromine even, those are oxidizers as well. That lid really should be open fully, not just halfway, but it should be open fully for at least 15 to 30 minutes. When you come in and we test that water, we emphasize that with our Alex printouts as well. But a good working cover is important. The lower right-hand corner of the slide here shows a blue cover. That is what we call a bubble cover or a solar blanket. It is smooth on the top side, and on the bottom side against the water, they're basically bubbles. It's like bubble wrap. But those bubbles, and this cover lays right on the water, and it basically helps prevent or minimize evaporation and heat loss. So it's just another layer. One could argue that if you have a nice, new, solid, good working hard cover on the top of the hot tub, then you don't necessarily need that bubble cover laying on the water's edge, but many people do need that because their covers are not in great shape and they're losing moisture and such. So this is another barrier against that loss. One other point about that blue bubble cover in the lower right, you see it's also cut to the contour shape of the hot tub on the water level. You don't want those bubble covers to come up the edge. That will also let heat and moisture out. So that should be cut and really trimmed to the exact contour of the inside of your hot tub. Real quick, a question. I have a nice high efficiency spa cover that you all sold me. Awesome. Thank you. I am wondering if I need to continue to use the layer of bubble wrap on the top of the water surface. They seem to wear out sooner than I'd like. Yeah. So one of the things that will wear out those solar blankets is a high concentration of sanitizer. That will tend to wear it down more quickly. So that would be an emphasis point there, Christy, to keep your sanitizer levels maintained at the proper level. Chlorine, that 3 to 5 parts per million residual, or bromine, the 2 to 6. So keep those sanitizer levels in the appropriate spot, and that will help that process. But again, if you have a brand new cover, you could win me over in an argument that may not be necessary at this point. So if it's deteriorating, perhaps maybe it's time to throw it away and be okay without it for now. Or if it's still in good shape, you can, I don't know, tuck it away, let it dry out and tuck it away for later on. And then your follow-up question was, my cover works really well, and I could tell during the snowstorm because the snow didn't melt on the surface at all. Yeah. So when you buy hard covers from the pool and spa house, they're custom made with a taper. So they are designed to shed water and moisture. So yeah, excellent. Any other questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, spa covers. They take about 6 weeks plus or minus. They're all custom made to your specifications of your tub. So they're all uniquely made for your spa. And then lastly, the covers that the pool and spa house that we have, they all are manufactured with a marine grade vinyl that is protected from the factory with a UV protection, if you will. But after a year, if these things are in the beating sun, that protection cover will wear out. So no different than your vehicle, any other sort of maintenance required piece in your world. This is another one of those things. We sell the product called 303 Protectant. It's readily available at any of our stores. This is Armor All on steroids, if you will. It's used by aerospace. It's a great product. You'd clean the cover with soap and water, let it dry off, and then you'd coat it with this. So it's a great protectant against the sun, and it's going to minimize that cracking and fading and those sort of things that you're going to actually just get with that sun beating down on it. And it's going to help also shed, that ice and snow easier as well. Perfect. And then just from an accessory standpoint, some of you have these. These are called cover lifts or cover lifters. There's different styles. The different styles dictate how low it drops the cover down. Some covers, lifters on the far right, for example, it creates more of a wall on the example on the far left and the far right, you've got more of a wall created versus the one in the center where it's going to drop that cover down further and create less of a wall. In high wind areas, that could be a dictator for which one is best fit for you. Also space behind your cover. If your hot tub's against a wall of your house or whatnot, that could be a consideration for which lift you might be limited to, perhaps because of limited space that you have behind the cover. And again, these covers will differ in 6 to 8 inches even with how much space is required behind the tub or where this cover folds back. So different styles, they mount differently. If you have one currently that's broken, if it's a Leisure Concepts brand, we can get parts for you. If it's not, then we can't get parts for you, but we certainly can talk about replacing your cover lifter as well. And then the next slide here is really just some more accessories, steps, grips, handles, trays, towel racks, all of these things. Any one of our stores would love to talk to you about in terms of accessories. So a lot of these things are on hand. You can go to the store tomorrow and pick one up and install it. Not difficult at all, and just a way to accessorize and make things more, make the usage of your tub more enjoyable, more convenient. And then I think this is the last slide here, spa fragrances. So Spa Says is a very popular fragrance that we sell. It is pH neutral. It has, some of these have arnica properties, some of them have aloe properties, so they're very therapeutic and very beneficial. So I'd highly encourage you to check them out. How much you use is dependent upon the intensity of the fragrance that you're looking for. It depends on the volume of your water. And the fragrance usually lasts, several days. So it just kind of depends on usage. But you can go to the stores, open up the caps and smell them and talk to our staff about them. But they will contribute to the total dissolved solids, yes, but they're not going to mess with your pH. They'll keep it in neutral while providing these other therapeutic benefits as well. And really, just as a thank you for attending, we didn't have an opportunity to get, we were going to have a digital coupon ready for you, but I've made note of everyone who attended tonight. For attending, we're going to offer 10% off of any of the brand new Rapid Dissolve products. And again, we would love to talk to you more about those in the store. And with your next purchase, we're also going to give you per household a little free measuring scoop that's super helpful. It's got quarter cup and tablespoon, teaspoons on the other end of it. So we'd be glad to give you one of those at no cost with your next purchase and visit. And I will be sending out a coupon that will represent this as well. So if you go into the store tomorrow and ask either Jay or Brian or Natalie or Will or Davis about the free scoop, they might be caught off guard. So give me a 24-hour period to make sure that we have things in line for you. But we will make that available to you, and we will communicate that with you by email, the same email that you've used to connect with us tonight. These again are our stores. We are so thankful for each one of you, not only for attending tonight, but for being a part of our the interactions at our stores. Again, bring in a water sample. You should all have water sample bottles. If you don't, ask our team for them. They're complimentary, and you can store them away in your chemical closet for every time you want to bring in a sample. Again, just as a refresher, we welcome those. We encourage them on a monthly basis, and that's not saying that we want to take the testing away from you, but it's a great idea to have us test on a regular basis. So that way, if you ever start experiencing problems, we already have that track record that we can go and reference in Alex with our water testing software. And having that testing history will help backtrack and look where things were chemistry wise, and then help us put together, formulate some ideas of what could be happening. So that's just a great resource as well. Thank you. If you have any other questions, again, please put them in the chat. I think we got to all of them, but if we didn't, if you think of something after you leave tonight, connect with us in the store. We'd love to have you. We will also be posting this on our YouTube channel, the poolandspahouse.com YouTube channel, and we'll have that there as well in the coming days for refresher. So thank you, everybody. Your time is valuable, and we hope that you got at least a few nuggets out of what you participated with tonight, but we're glad that you were able to join us, and we wish you all a great evening. And again, thank you, Randy, for presenting tonight. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thanks.